Last lap, engines screaming, riders on the edge of physics. But lately, watching MotoGP feels different. Like the bikes are starting to outgrow the people riding them. These machines have become monsters, pushing beyond what human reflexes, muscles, and minds can realistically handle. The phrase "too fast for humans" used to sound like a brag. Now it's starting to sound like a warning. MotoGP has always been a beautiful kind of madness, human courage meeting mechanical genius. But what's happening right now isn't just evolution, it's acceleration, the kind that blurs the line between sport and science fiction. Modern MotoGP bikes are no longer just motorcycles. They're weaponized computers with carbon fiber skin. Every sensor, every aerodynamic curve, every millisecond of throttle data is tuned to extract perfection. The result? Lap times that make legends of the past look like warm-ups, and riders who are being pushed to physical and mental extremes that few people can imagine surviving. You look at onboard footage and see chaos, yet inside that chaos is a terrifying precision. Winglets, once dismissed as gimmicks, now glue bikes to the tarmac. Ride height devices catapult them out of corners. Traction control systems predict slides before the rider even feels them. The physics are staggering, but the price is creeping up, not in money, but in human endurance. Riders don't just race anymore, they fight their own bodies. The G-forces on braking zones are brutal. You can see their arms shake under the pressure, their necks fighting to keep their heads from snapping back under acceleration. The strain is constant, the exhaustion real. What used to be a test of skill has become a test of survival. One mistake, one hesitation, and the bike punishes you instantly. And this isn't about fear. Every MotoGP rider lives with that. It's about control, about whether the human mind and body can still truly control something that fast, that sophisticated, that unpredictable. When you hear riders talk about losing feeling in their fingers mid-race, or about having to fight through blackouts from braking G-forces, you start to realize maybe the bikes have finally crossed a line. Part of the problem is that the circuits haven't evolved as quickly as the machines. Many MotoGP tracks were designed decades ago, when bikes didn't hit the kinds of speeds we're seeing today. Now the barriers feel closer, the runoffs smaller, the crashes more violent. Even tiny mistakes become catastrophic at 350 kilometers per hour. Riders know it, teams know it, the sport knows it, but no one wants to be the first to hit the brakes on progress. Then there's aerodynamics, the blessing and curse of the modern era. Those sleek carbon fins might look like art, but they've turned bikes into miniature fighter jets. More downforce means better corner grip, sure, but it also means higher corner entry speeds, faster transitions, and more strain on human reaction times. The rider's body becomes the final bottleneck in a system otherwise optimized for perfection. It's not the engine that brakes first anymore. It's the person. And it's not just speed, it's acceleration. The way these machines lunge out of corners now feels unnatural. Riders say it's like being slingshotted, the kind of instant torque that can rip your arms from the bars if you're even slightly off balance. Every muscle, every heartbeat has to synchronize with the bike, or you lose it. This evolution didn't happen overnight. It started with small tweaks. Winglets here, a hole shot device there. Engineers discovered that by dropping the bike's front end under acceleration, they could stop it from wheeling. Great. But then they realized, if you do that at every corner exit, you're shaving tenths off every lap. Multiply that by 20 laps, and suddenly you're rewriting race history. The unintended side effect? A new kind of exhaustion, not from racing longer, but from surviving harder. And that's where the irony hits. The better the bikes get, the worse the racing sometimes looks. When aerodynamics dominate, overtaking becomes nearly impossible. The wake turbulence, that invisible storm of disturbed air behind each bike, messes with the one trying to follow. Riders can't get close enough to make moves because their front tires lose grip. The result? Less wheel-to-wheel drama. More formation laps at blistering speed. The danger goes up, but the show sometimes suffers. What's wild is that everyone inside the sport sees it happening. Engineers are in love with progress. Riders are split between awe and concern. Fans, they just want the spectacle. The human versus machine drama that made MotoGP what it is. But when the machine starts winning that battle, it changes everything. So MotoGP finds itself standing at a crossroads. Keep pushing forward, and you risk alienating the very thing that makes the sport human, the rider. Pull back, and you risk losing the thrill that defines it. And that's where 2027 comes in, the year everything is supposed to change. The sport's governing body plans to shrink engine size from 1,000 cubic centimeters to 850 cubic centimeters, remove the hole shot and ride height devices, and tighten aerodynamic regulations. The goal isn't to neuter the bikes, but to realign them with what riders can handle. It's an attempt to restore balance, to let human skill matter more than mechanical wizardry again. But will it work? Or is the genie already out of the bottle? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The arms race between manufacturers isn't just about innovation. It's about pride. Ducati, Yamaha, Honda, KTM, they're not just competing on the track. They're competing in the labs, in the factories, in the patents. Whoever finds the next trick gains a tenth of a second. And in MotoGP, a tenth is everything. The rivalry fuels the sport's brilliance, but it also accelerates its crisis. You can't stop progress when billions in R&D are on the line. And behind all this technology are the riders, the gladiators still expected to smile for the cameras, sign autographs, and act like this is just another race weekend. But deep down, they know the truth. They're balancing on the edge of what's physically possible. Every qualifying lap could be their fastest or their last. The question isn't just about speed anymore. It's about identity. What is MotoGP supposed to be? A showcase of human mastery or a display of engineering dominance? Because right now it's starting to look like both can't coexist forever. Riders admit that even small mistakes now feel magnified, like the entire sport has zoomed in on the tiniest human flaw. The bikes are so finely tuned that there's no such thing as a recovery zone anymore. If your tire pressure is off by a whisper, if your body shifts an inch mid-turn, if your focus wavers for a single heartbeat, that's it, you're gone. A decade ago, that might have cost you a tenth of a second. Today, it could cost you the race, your bones, or your consciousness. The margin between mastery and mayhem has never been thinner. Riders describe it as dancing on a knife's edge, while the floor moves beneath you. Every lap is a high-speed math problem, where one wrong calculation doesn't mean failure, it means flight. The bike doesn't forgive, it exposes. And that mental pressure, it's a whole new dimension of endurance. Imagine piloting a machine that reacts faster than your brain can process, something that anticipates grip changes before you even feel them. You spend years training, rewiring your instincts, memorizing braking points, studying telemetry like scripture. But no amount of preparation can rewrite biology. The human body wasn't designed to pull multiple Gs lap after lap, to stay laser-focused while your organs are being shaken like dice. Muscles cramp, eyes blur, vision narrows into a tunnel. Every heartbeat feels louder than the engine. Your brain starts to lag behind your reactions. Milliseconds at first, but in MotoGP, milliseconds are eternity. Adrenaline keeps you awake, but it also burns you out. It floods your system until fine motor control starts to slip. Your hands go numb, your breathing gets shallow, and that's when the real danger starts. Because when you're pushing this close to the edge, the line between reflex and panic disappears. And that's the brutal truth of modern MotoGP. It's not just about how brave you are, it's about how much your body can take before it betrays you. Even the engineers are starting to talk about it. They see data that the public doesn't. They know how close riders are to blackout during braking, how extreme the acceleration forces have become. The mechanical data tells a story of triumph. The biological data whispers a warning. The most haunting part? There's no easy fix, because slowing bikes down feels wrong. It feels like betrayal. Racing thrives on excess, on the impossible. Nobody wants to see MotoGP turn into a sanitized version of itself. Fans crave danger, risk, that sense of barely controlled chaos. But you can't ignore what the riders are saying. When elite athletes start admitting they're hitting physical limits, that's a signal worth listening to. The upcoming changes, smaller engines, restricted aero, fewer gadgets, are being met with mixed feelings. Some riders welcome it, saying it'll bring back real racing. Others roll their eyes, arguing that speed is the soul of MotoGP. And that's what makes this debate so fascinating, because both sides are right. You can't have MotoGP without danger, but you also can't have danger without humans capable of surviving it. The future might lie in rethinking what performance means. Maybe it's not about chasing higher top speeds, but about preserving intensity, the battles, the duels, the unpredictability. Racing at 320 kilometers per hour instead of 360 doesn't make it less thrilling if the action stays close. The magic isn't in the numbers, it's in the balance between chaos and control. We might even see a cultural reset, riders reclaiming their place as artists, not operators, engineers focusing on feel instead of force, races where a rider's bravery and instinct matter more than who has the better wind tunnel data. That could be the renaissance MotoGP needs, a return to the heartbeat of the sport. Because let's be honest, the reason people fall in love with MotoGP isn't because of horsepower stats or cornering speeds, it's the human element. It's the sight of someone wrestling a machine that wants to kill them and somehow making it look like poetry. It's the vulnerability, the rawness, the idea that no matter how advanced technology gets, courage is still analog. And that courage is being tested like never before. When you watch riders collapse after a race, barely able to unstrap their helmets, you realize this isn't just sport, it's endurance, bordering on self-destruction. But maybe that's what makes it beautiful, the madness of chasing control over something uncontrollable. Maybe MotoGP doesn't need to slow down. Maybe it needs to refocus. Instead of building bikes that do everything perfectly, maybe the next era should build bikes that let riders make the difference again. Because when the human is at the center, every victory means something. Every mistake costs something. That's what makes it real. And that's the paradox MotoGP is living in right now. A sport at war with its own brilliance. Machines have become too good, and the riders who tame them are paying the price. But that's also what makes this era unforgettable. It's the moment before the reset, the phase where MotoGP stares into the mirror and asks, are we still racing for humans? Or are humans just the last necessary component before full automation? Maybe that's dramatic, maybe not. But what's certain is this: MotoGP will have to evolve again. Not toward faster, but toward balance. Because the greatest races are the ones that remind us why we care. Not because the bikes are fast, but because someone dared to hold on. If you love MotoGP for that very reason, for the madness, the mastery, the thin line between genius and disaster, then stick around. The next few years might redefine what speed even means. So tell me, if you were in charge, would you slow the bikes down or let them keep flying until something gives? Let's see where you stand. And if you want more stories that dive into the pulse of speed, danger, and human grit, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more.